Hey everybody, so excited to be on the first podcast of the year at the RW and have with us very special guest, my very own brother-in-law, 8-time Grammy nominated Tauren Wells.
What's up, bro?
Man, thank you so much for taking time out to come and be a part of the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
A very special day today that we're actually doing this podcast because it is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, but today is Human Trafficking Awareness Day.
Yeah.
And you have been partnering with, which I'm not going to ruin all this, I want you to talk about it, but you've been partnering with Tim Tebow, and you guys have been doing a lot of stuff. You've written a song that, man, seriously, the first time that I heard the song is just an amazing song. It's gripping, and I don't think people understand or realize how big of an issue this is right now.
Yeah, it's huge. And, you know, us having kids, you just can't imagine.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even want to allow yourself to imagine your child being put in the types of situations that 40 million children are placed in all over the world, and mostly in the United States. America actually leads the world in human trafficking and slavery. So it's pretty unbelievable. You know, I read a book about this when I was, in high school.
Yeah.
So something I've been aware of, but it was one of those things where it happens in dark places.
Right.
And so you don't even think about the reality of it for people. And at the beginning of this last year in 2020, LB, your sister, my wife, she was telling me about all this stuff that was coming out, you know, through different platforms and companies and different systems that have been set up around this secret society almost that's creating this reality for people. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I know that's real. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But I'm invested in a lot of things right now that are really important.
Right.
So I don't really have heart space for another issue. And then she sent me a DM actually of a Blake Lively talk, which, you know, maybe it was because it was Blake Lively that encouraged me to actually watch it.
Well, now.
But I watched it, and I can't really have I don't have any other language for it except I was grieved by what I heard and how she explained it, and she shared like specific examples of what's happening. And being exposed to it on that level, there was just absolutely no way I could move forward and feel like I'm okay. I'm doing what I'm called to do and fulfilled in that. So I started praying about what I could do.
Yeah.
And of course, this is a massive issue. It's something you can't really wrap your mind around it. So how can you wrap your hands around it trying to do something tangible? It's a $150 billion industry. Most of what is happening is children being exploited online.
Yeah.
And it's just unimaginable. So as I was praying about it, thinking about it, what can we do? What can we do? I was like, well, I obviously need to start an organization, or I need to do something, you know, big and grand. Then I started looking on Instagram, and my friend Tim Tebow was posting a lot of information about human trafficking.
Right.
And up to that point, I didn't know that he was really involved in that space. He's involved in a lot of spaces, but I hadn't seen a lot about that. So interestingly enough, he was elevating his voice on human trafficking, which he'd been a part of for 12 years, fighting against this. And God was elevating this issue in my heart. So I hit Tim and I was like, hey, bro, I love what you're doing. God's put this on our heart. Is there anything we can do to come alongside you and Demi and the Tim Tebow Foundation and actually make a change? And he said, dude, the first place my mind goes is you write a song for us. So that's what ended up happening. And he kind of has a cool story, too, because his dad was a missionary for years.
Mm-hmm.
Tim was born in the Philippines. And so this has been very close to their hearts. His dad called him one day and said, Tim, I just bought 4 girls. And Tim was like, what do you mean you bought 4 girls? He said, I just took all the money out of my wallet. It was $1,200. And they were being sold to someone, so I bought them.
Wow.
And that was when they started rescue houses in different countries, different parts of the world. And now they have a full-blown ministry that's evolved over 12 years that is a global network facilitating change, rescue teams where they're going into communities, rescuing children from these situations. And then they're also building infrastructure around communities and families,
Yeah.
so that they're not in a position where they have to sell their kids. That's what the component I didn't realize was a lot of kids involved in child slavery are doing it because their parents put them in it, because they need to make ends meet and make money or owe someone money, and so they use their children literally as a commodity.
And it's so hard, like you said, as a parent to even fathom that you would get to a place where you would say, well, maybe I should sacrifice my child to
this is an option.
Yeah, to unspoken things.
Evils.
And one of the craziest things that I became aware of a few years ago was the fact that Houston is actually one of the largest hubs for that.
Yep.
And again, I've lived here since 1983. It's something that you never know is happening all the time, and it's widespread. And the thing that I am glad about is you see people like Ashton Kutcher. There's a lot of other people in Hollywood and some other places that have gotten interested in this, shine light upon it, and then are trying to do things about it. And sometimes when you start talking about the numbers that you're talking about, the amount of people that it's affecting, sometimes with those kind of situations it seems too big. You're like, okay, it's like, okay, I'm going to solve world hunger, right? I mean, it's like that's just too big of a thing. But I think for the important thing for us is to figure out what small thing that we can do to play in it. Unfortunately, all of us don't have the platform. I mean, you've been blessed with a platform that you can talk about this, that you can really affect change with just your voice. I'm not talking about just singing, but talking about these issues. But there are things that people can do on a singular level to really help this. And obviously a lot of that has to do with what we're doing as Christians, period.
Right. And that's the thing. I think we all have the right intentions. If we saw this happening in front of our very eyes, we would defend the person needing to be defended.
Right.
No question.
Right.
But because it's happening in dark corners, it's hard to remember that it's an issue, but also, how do I get involved? I mean, I struggled with that.
Right.
Right. And, you acknowledge the platform that I have. When I look at Tim's platform, I'm like, do I really have a platform? you know? So it's like, and so I can imagine, the stay-at-home mom or the husband that's working 60 hours a week. I know it's bad, but I'm busy.
Right.
But if you can just do a small thing, which is why, Tim encouraged me to the obvious, which was write a song.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I'll write the song, we'll put it together, and then when we put it out, we'll do a big initiative to stream it, to download, we'll put some merch with it, and I'm donating 100% of the proceeds to Tim's foundation.
That's awesome.
That's executing these rescue missions. So
you guys did like a 24-hour
Change the World challenge.
Yeah.
Where at the very minimum, all you had to do to change the world was play the song.
Yeah.
So we can all do that, you know?
Right.
And that's why there's a lyric in the song that says, 2 eyes open, see the truth for the first time. They move 10,000 hands to reach a life. Start a chain reaction 40 million times till 7 billion of us find we're all God's children.
Yeah.
It just starts with 2 eyes.
Yeah.
Like, I see it.
Yeah, that's a great
What
lyric.
can I do?
Yeah. Well, you're going to sing that song.
Yes, I am.
And I'm excited about you doing that. And I know that you just debuted the song All God's Children, but why don't you do that for us right now? I'm excited about hearing it.
Yeah, man. She's all alone in the shadows, the depths of her soul gone shallow, her body for sale like merchandise, the scarlet letter of the red light. Father died at the hands of her courtesies. Mother cried as she tried to find food to eat. She was traded for change as a slave, hadn't even turned 13. We still all God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. All God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. Are we still all God's children? Don't need the news to legitimize it. No turning away, no choosing sides. I've gotta respond to what I've seen. If it's the reason that your heart beats, 2 eyes open, see the truth for the first time. They move 10,000 hands to reach a life. Start a chain reaction 40 million times. So 7 billion of us find we are all God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. All God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. Held and treasured, every soul together. All God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. Worthy of freedom. And this is a rescue mission, a love that's without condition. And this is our fight till every life is set free. And this is a rescue mission, a love that's without condition. And this is our fight till every life is set free. 'Cause we are all God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. All God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. Held and treasured, every soul together. All God's children, made in His image, perfectly loved, worthy of freedom. Worthy of freedom.
Man, seriously, what an incredible song. You know, for me, the lyrics in that song tell such a story. I mean, you know, talking about where this girl's coming from, all the things. And I think it brings us back to, you know, you talked about when you watched that video that you just felt like this grieving. Mm-hmm. And to me, the first time I heard the song, and, you know, thankfully I had the opportunity to hear it before it even came out. But I remember sitting there listening to it and just feeling it pull on my heart for this need that's out there. And, you know, you can talk about all the things and all the needs that are in the world. There's hunger, there's all these things. But to me, you know, the Bible says that one of the things that He hates is hands that shed innocent blood. Yeah. And to me, this speaks directly to that. This is something on God's hate list. This is something He despises. And having kids, man, this grips my heart because I have a daughter. So I'm sitting here thinking, how in the world would I be as a parent? Because somewhere there's a parent out there that doesn't know where their daughter's at, that doesn't know what's happening with them. And what you guys are doing, man, my hat goes off to you, because it's a huge need and something that definitely has to be addressed.
Well, thank you. And, the reality is for a lot of these victims out there, they're being sexually abused over 5 times a day. So when you think about that, and you think about a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, it's just, but we can do something, and we may not fix the problem entirely, but we can do something. Yeah. This is a type of scenario where, if you think about how big it is, it's overwhelming, but it's about one person, one rescue mission, one stream. Right now you can go to timtebowfoundation.org.
Okay.
And there is a whole action plan, and you can choose which level you want to engage on.
Yeah.
You can donate money, you can get involved, you can download the song. There are a lot of ways that you can participate. And the reality is, this is our fight. This is possibly the greatest evil that exists in the world today.
I agree.
So this is our fight, and it's a unique fight for the church, and we have an opportunity to step in and do it.
And as the church, I think it's hard as a Christian to know when to stand and to know when to, be more passive in situations. Mm-hmm. There's obviously been a lot of things that have happened in 2020 that, as a Christian, it was like, okay, I feel a certain way about things, but I'm not sure if I can speak on this. I'm not sure if this is something that I can take on, not because I was scared of the responsibility,
right,
but because I didn't want to tread on someone's toes. I didn't want to offend someone.
Yeah.
I didn't want to step into an arena where somebody goes, this isn't your place to speak into. But this is a place
clear
that it doesn't matter who you
no
are.
No question. That's right.
If you're a Christian, you should be standing up for the innocent.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So there is no debate on where we stand in this situation. And I can tell you, just since you've gotten involved with this, it's brought, more light to it in my eyes. And I'm sitting here going, okay, well, what can I do about this? Because as a father, as a man, as a Christian, I'm going, I want to be able to help in this some way, somehow. And, I'm glad that one of the things that I'm thankful for with Tim Tebow is there's a lot of people out there when it comes to foundations and all this kind of stuff that it's a very, lackadaisical type thing.
It's a shell.
He
really
is aggressive about this, and I've followed what he's done with this, and I mean, he's made change.
Absolutely.
He has literally made change, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
it really
is. So people can get involved. Go to timtebowfoundation.org, or you can go to my website. There's a link there to taurenwells.com, and figure out what role you can play in anti-slavery and anti-human trafficking.
Make sure that you go and do that. It's very, very important. I did want to talk about that, but I wanted to talk about some other things as well, some things happening with you. We've had you on the podcast several times, and again, I want to say thank you for coming on. I was able to do a small slot on the High Note, which, if you have not checked out that podcast by Tauren Wells, you need to make sure to check that out. It's available on every platform, and bro, just dropping nuggets.
You didn't need a lot of time, though. It's about the impact. Some people can say nothing in 40 minutes, but you killed it in 5.
Well,
so
I appreciate that. I was honored to be a part of it, and I've been able to listen to several of those podcasts. I need to catch up because I haven't heard all of them.
Oh,
get on to me later.
You're missing some gold.
But let me tell you, every single podcast that I've listened to has benefited me, man. Has been literally jam-packed with just gold.
Well, I'm grateful that you would say that, and that you would take time to actually listen. I know that you're doing a lot, and this podcast has been very meaningful for me too. Yeah. The last podcast you did on becoming, if you haven't heard that one, you need to go and download it immediately. It's a great perspective for the new year. But yeah, I wasn't really looking to do a podcast. It was an opportunity that came up that I actually resisted at first, because I'm just like in that category of what could I possibly say that would add value to someone's life that's not already being said by the experts.
Sure.
The billionaires, you want to go learn about leadership, go listen to Craig Groeschel and Andy, So I was very hesitant, but my family, along with some friends, encouraged me, like, people want to hear your voice, your perspective, your experience.
Absolutely.
And so I jumped into it. It's called the High Note Podcast, and it's been really cool. It's been an area for me to really grow, developing consistent content and things like that. My hat goes off to people who are preaching every week and communicating regularly.
Well, I mean, as you know, and the thing that I like is, you always take a segment on the podcast, and then you always bring in other people for, tidbits and advice and all kinds of things. And as you know, it's tough to get people to come in, to have guests to come in. Honestly, I tell people all the time that the hardest thing about this podcast is not content to talk about, because there's so much to talk about, but it's hard to find people, it's hard to get guests on, it's hard to work with people's schedules. It's a tough thing. But one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about the podcast is honestly the things that I've gleaned. Like, sitting down and talking to people about, man, we've talked about racism, we've talked about child raising, I've had psychiatrists. I mean, we've just done all kinds of things. And the amount of information that I've gotten to learn, we've heard people's stories that have been alcoholics and drug addicts and all these things, and testimonies, and it's been beneficial to me. And like, I always did it because I was like, okay, I want to do a podcast that will help someone else. Maybe they can listen to it, they'll be encouraged. But the amount of encouragement I've gained has been, was something I didn't expect. So, but man, it's great. It's been great. What I'm excited about is that actually 2020, you were nominated as the Christian contemporary male, half black. I mean, I don't know what all
everything you can add.
Performer of the year. And the cool thing is that we got to be there when you were not that you were nominated, when you received the award, which everything obviously
CCM Artist of the Year.
CCM Artist of the Year, which all of that, of course, is, you can't be there, and it's everything's social distance and all that kind of stuff. But it was amazing to be there. But man, your last album, there's not a bad song on there.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that because you're my brother-in-law. I would tell you. I would.
You would.
I would.
That's a fact.
But I mean, it's just so solid, and the thing that I like about it too is it kind of hits like every spectrum. There's very moving songs. There's songs that I can get with at the gym. Like, there's just a little bit of everything on there, and so not only did I feel it was well deserved and high time that you were recognized in that way.
Thanks.
But man, seriously, congrats to you. So excited about that. And then for your 8th Grammy nomination too.
Thank you.
It's
crazy. I mean, we're recording this at Royalwood Church, and I wrote these songs in the Sunday school rooms. It's crazy to see what God can do with something that feels so small when you're starting. And then as you continue, you realize that God had a much greater plan than you anticipated. And I think a lot of people, to kind of pivot from me a little bit, we don't do what God has called us to do because everything in God's kingdom starts as seed. And there is nothing exciting about a seed. It seems small. It seems insignificant. There is always questions. Will it grow? What can become of this? But everything in God's kingdom starts in seed form, and faith as a grain of mustard seed,
right?
And so we can't judge things by what they look like when we start them, because it will not be what it is when God finishes the work that he began. And so, I just have been trying to encourage people along the way with this idea that whatever you have right now is all you need right now.
Yeah.
And if you sow those seeds in the season that you're in right now, it's going to produce fruit for that season.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, in my own journey, I feel like I have discounted myself from future opportunities because I was trying to produce the wrong fruit in the wrong season. I was looking for the wrong thing in the right time.
That's good.
But God's going to deliver exactly what you need in the season that he needs it in, not necessarily that we want it in. So, it's amazing to have those awards and nominations, but to know where it started. Right. It started as a seed, not as a trophy.
Yeah. Well, and, that's something that you and I on a personal level have talked about a lot because, I've been here since the very, very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We've known you this entire time.
Yep.
And
I signed my first record deal in the conference room.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. And even before that, when you were doing, little personal stuff, just trying to, write
IBC praise, bro.
Just to write some songs, just to get some, all that kind of stuff. And even before that, from your story that you've shared, I think on this podcast of what you were even doing as a child, people look at the finished product a lot of times and they go, wow, well, I wish I could do that. But they don't understand the work that goes into it. And I always think about this with the city of Jericho, that I think a lot of times people stop on that 6th march.
Absolutely.
Instead of taking that 7th time around. And so they never see the wall fall.
Yeah.
And so they look at their situation and go, I can never be that. Well, it's because you stopped marching too soon.
Yeah.
You have overcome some unbelievable obstacles, from racism to, we can just go down the line that I saw personally. This is not something you try to hype up so you have a better story, for The Voice. This is something,
If you're not crying in your voice audition, you're not getting on.
You're not,
just a tip.
You're not getting on. It's just not going to happen. But I've seen these things happen and see you continue to push because, first of all, you knew that this is what God wanted you to do. This was not a man mandate. This was not something that you were receiving pressure from somewhere else. This was something that you said, this is what God wants me to be. And so when you were confident in that, you continue to push through, every obstacle. And now you're starting to see the fruits of your labor when there was a lot of times, and we even had these discussions where it was like, I just don't know if I can keep doing this.
Is this the thing?
Yeah.
And progress is a process.
Yes.
That is what progress is, a process.
Absolutely.
God created a context for growth and success. And if you don't like those words, let's use fruitfulness. He created a context for fruitfulness. And in the beginning of the world, we're talking about God who could think it and it be.
Right.
Who could speak it and have everything that he had in mind in his possession in less than an instant. There wouldn't be time without him.
Right.
He created it.
Right.
But he took 6 days to create the earth, rested on the 7th. He
could have done it in a moment.
Could have done it in a moment.
Yeah.
But he took his time, and on day 1, he did what he needed to do on day 1, and he said, you know what? Day 1 is good.
Yeah.
Not, oh, dude, this isn't all done yet. This isn't good because it's not done. Just because it's not done doesn't mean it's not good.
That's good right there.
Day 2, I'm going to take my time, with the trees and with the flowers, and that's good.
Yeah.
He just wasn't in a hurry. His mom had to make him do his first miracle.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not even time, Mom. And he, he does it because he's smart. We all know you do what your mom says, but he does it. But even that miracle was a process.
Right.
You had to go get the containers. You had to fill them up with water. We get in a hurry. I have gotten in a hurry.
Oh, everybody.
Because I have set timelines and expectations that me and God hadn't agreed upon.
Yeah.
And if it's not happening now, then it's like, well, God, are you ever going to do it?
Well,
He will.
And not only that, I think a lot of times if it's not happening in our time, that we equate that with failure.
Yes.
You know, I mean, many times I see people do that. It's like, well, I thought I was going to be here. This was my 5-year plan, but I didn't make it. And that's one of the things that I talked about in the podcast for 2021 when I talked about Become, is that a lot of times we look at things that we haven't done, and then we equate that with failure because it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
You know, you spoke to this, and I love this scripture, the scripture that says a man's gift will make room for itself. A lot of times we try to push that into existence. Like we try to almost force God's hand in things when God's going, no, there's lessons that I still need you to learn in this. And one of the things that you and I have talked about is through this process, the lessons that you have learned, the lessons that I've learned through processes in my life, that if I would have skipped ahead, it would have been epic failure.
Wouldn't have been able to handle it.
No, and it would have been epic failure for me because I would have jumped ahead of things that God was saying, no, there's a process here. I've got to teach you things along the way or you won't get it. You won't be able to handle it. You'll mismanage it or whatever because we try to force those things. You're absolutely right. I'm excited about that stuff happening for you. I will tell all of you that this next album, bro, I mean, not that I've heard any of it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
Probably too much.
Well,
here's song 30.
Well, I mean, this is what people don't realize is how many songs you have to write in order to get to how many songs make it on an album. Now, literally, I've heard so many songs that I'm like, dude, there's no way you can cut any of these out. Like, these all have
That's
to be
how I
used.
feel, but
not the labels.
Not everyone
feel
feels that way.
But I'm excited about that. But I'm also excited about you guys kind of picking up where you left off with the Hits Deep tour.
Yeah.
We were at one of the last shows, well, kind of towards the end of the last shows, and we're going to go see. I was going to be able to take my kids, and then it got canceled, and we were so sick about that.
March of 2020,
just
whole tour got shut down.
The pandemic, just nastiness.
Crazy day.
But you guys are picking that back up. The first weekend is the first weekend of February, right?
Yep, and we're starting in Texas. We're starting in Cedar Park, Texas, and we're doing 3 nights in a row there in Cedar Park. So I'm excited.
Who all's with you guys on that? Do you remember?
It is Toby, obviously, myself. We Are Messengers, Unspoken, someone else.
I put you
someone
on the
else and someone else. I think it's 6 artists.
You've got the rapper, bro. That's gonna make me so
Aaron
mad.
Cole.
Is Aaron
He's
Cole
not
on?
on this one.
Bro.
He's not on this one.
I enjoyed Aaron Cole last time.
Me too.
He,
it's a smaller bill. Normally there's more artists out, but everything is scaled down. The merch is scaled down. We're actually performing in the round.
Okay.
So to open up the full arena so that you can have social distancing, there will be COVID protocols in place for the tour. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm just excited to actually go out and play music.
I bet. Well, for somebody like you that enjoys performing and enjoys being able to be in those venues and connecting with people and all that kind of stuff, when that completely gets shut down, and I mean, you haven't been able to do anything. It's been
weird.
It's been really weird. And for an artist or a performer or somebody like that, this whole pandemic has been crushing for all that. So I'm excited about you guys getting back in. I know the band and all the guys, they've got to be ecstatic.
Ready. The funny thing is, everyone was complaining about the schedule, like there was too much
until
in 2020.
It's not there. Yeah.
And now it's like, can we please play a show?
We'll play every night. We don't care.
We'll play birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, whatever.
Well, that's going to be cool. Cedar Park's right there in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be sweet.
And we have some other Texas shows. Tyler, Texas. We're playing close to Dallas as well. So you can go to taurenwells.com, get tour dates.
Cool. But you are going all over the place for that.
Yeah.
How long is that tour?
It's the month of February and maybe the first weekend of March.
But it's like boom,
it's
boom,
quick.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, it's all very condensed.
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing that a lot of people don't realize is like on those tours like that, it is taxing. It's not like you sleep all day.
Oh yeah,
and then
work.
You got sound checks, you got interviews that you do.
Yep.
I mean, it's all kinds of stuff. You're moving from one city to the other during the night a lot of times where you're trying to catch sleep in a bed that's no bigger than this table.
Yeah, right.
Which would not work for a guy like me.
No, but for a guy like me, it's amazing. It's like a hyperbolic chamber.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well, you're about to get your workouts in for sure.
I am, yeah.
You usually burn about 6,000 calories each night on those things. Well, I'm excited about that, man. I really am excited about what you guys are doing with the human trafficking thing. And, I can tell you that me personally, I'm going to do some things to get involved in it. I encourage you guys to get involved in it. If you have the opportunity to do that, you can go to Tim Tebow's website. You can go to Tauren Wells' website. Make sure that you hit up the Hits Deep tour that's coming out. Be ready for new releases. As I know, when are those? What's the?
I don't know.
You don't know when that's happening yet?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I know there's a lot of stuff in the works for that. But I want to thank you again, man, for coming and hanging out, for performing today. That was tremendous, man. Thank you for doing that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, we drop a new podcast every Tuesday. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Instagram. You can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on Roku TV,
MySpace,
LimeWire, Apple TV, Parler. We don't care. We're everywhere. Thank you, guys. Have a great week, and I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of DRW. We appreciate you guys tuning in every week, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you want to see video content for this podcast, make sure that you go to Royalwood Church on YouTube. That's right below. Make sure that you click on the bell so you can be notified for new content. Also, you want to follow us on Instagram at DRW Podcast _, Facebook at DRW Podcast, and then brand new, we've got our Roku channel where you can check out the podcast, and also Apple TV. Make sure that you tune in every week, like and share this with someone that you think it would be a blessing to, and we'll see you soon.